She found the chest on the night of his funeral. Not his funeral. The funeral of the man she had been forced to marry. The Duke of Ashworth, her husband in name only, had died of a fever that swept through the northern estates like a scythe. She had been his wife for 7 years. She had not shed a single tear. The servants had packed his study by candlelight. She had ordered them to leave the locked chest. She did not know why. Something in her chest, her real chest, the one that still ached in the hours before dawn, had whispered, "Open it." The lock was old, iron, tarnished by years of untouched silence. She broke it with a letter opener, the blade thin as a whisper, and the lid creaked open like a throat that had forgotten how to speak. Inside dozens of letters, all addressed to her, all stamped, all sealed. None of them had ever been sent. She recognized the hand immediately. Not her husband's. No. This was the jagged, desperate script of the only man she had ever loved, the man who had destroyed her, the man who had stood at the altar with another woman while she bled onto the stones of the cathedral floor, the man who had been dead to her for 7 years. She picked up the first letter. Her hands did not shake. She had stopped shaking the night she left him, the night she disappeared into the fog with nothing but a child in her arms and a name she swore she would never speak again. The letter was dated. The night she left. She opened it. And the Duke of Ravenscroft's voice, broken, obsessive, haunted, rose from the page like a ghost she had never managed to bury. "I wrote this at midnight. The servants are asleep. The wedding is in 12 hours. I am writing to a woman I will never see again because I am too much of a coward to stop it." She closed her eyes, and the world fractured. The night before the wedding, that should have been hers. She remembered every detail. The way the rain had tapped against the window of her small room in the servants' quarters. The way the candle had guttered, throwing shadows across the walls like the ghosts of everything she was about to lose. The way she had pressed her hand to her stomach, still flat, still hiding the secret that would destroy her, and made a vow. "I will not cry. I will not beg. I will not give him the satisfaction of seeing me break." She had dressed in the dark, a plain gown, no jewelry, no perfume. She had left behind everything he had ever given her, the silk ribbons, the silver locket with his portrait, the letters she had kept folded beneath her pillow, the ones he had written when he still promised her forever. She had taken only one thing, the child inside her, and she had walked out into the fog. The estate was silent. The gardens where they had met in shadow were drenched in dew. She passed the rose bushes he had planted for her, the bench where he had first kissed her, the stone wall where he had whispered that she was his, not the kingdom's, not his family's, not any other woman's, his. She had believed him. She had been 17, she had been a servant, a nobody, a girl with dirt under her nails and calluses on her hands and eyes that had never learned to look away from a duke. The kingdom had told her she was nothing. His mother had told her she was a stain. His father had offered her gold to disappear, and he, the Duke of Ravenscroft, the coldest man in the aristocracy, the one whose name was spoken in whispers and fear, had told her he loved her, and then he had told her to forget. "This cannot continue, you know that. I have duties, obligations. I am to marry Lady Marguerite. It has been arranged since we were children. I cannot choose you." She had not cried then. She had not cried when he turned away. She had not cried when she saw the announcement in the papers 3 days later. She had only walked. The fog swallowed her. The estate disappeared behind her. The road stretched into darkness, and she followed it without knowing where it led, because anywhere was better than staying in a place where she had been loved and discarded in the same breath. She opened the second letter. "I searched for you. I tore through every village, every estate, every port. I offered fortunes, I begged. I became the man the kingdom whispers about, the broken duke who lost his mind over a servant." She read the words twice, 3 times. She did not understand them. He had searched for her. He had begged. The Duke of Ravenscroft, who had stood at the altar with Lady Marguerite's hand in his, who had spoken his vows without a tremor, who had watched her walk down the aisle of the cathedral and never once looked at the woman in the back pew, the one who had to be held upright by a stranger because she thought her legs would give out. That duke had searched for her. She turned to the second page. The ink was smudged in places. Rain, tears. She did not know. She did not want to know. "I found nothing. No trace, no name. It was as if you had never existed, as if I had dreamed you, and I began to wonder if I had. If the nights we spent together, the way you laughed, the way you smelled of rain and lavender, If any of it had been real, or if I had invented you because the life I was living was too cold to bear without an imaginary warmth. She stopped reading. The room was silent. The candles had burned low. The shadows on the walls were the same shadows she had seen the night she left, dancing, mocking, reminding her of everything she had buried. She wanted to burn the letters. She wanted to throw them into the fire and watch them turn to ash and never think of him again. But her hands would not move. She opened the third letter. He had written it in a carriage, stopped on a bridge, in the middle of a storm. She could tell from the way the ink had bled, the way the paper was warped at the edges. I stopped the carriage on the bridge where I first kissed you. Do you remember? It was raining then, too. You laughed and said I was a fool to stand in the rain for a servant. I told you I would stand in a storm for you. I meant it. I still mean it. I will always mean it. She remembered the bridge. She remembered the rain. She remembered the way his coat had soaked through and he had not cared. She remembered thinking, this is impossible. A duke does not love a servant. A duke does not kiss a servant in the rain. A duke does not look at a servant like she is the only thing in the world worth seeing. But he had, and she had believed him, and she had paid for that belief with every year of her life since. I am married now. Lady Marguerite is my wife. She is kind. She is proper. She is everything I was supposed to want. But she is not you. She will never be you. And every night when I lie beside her, I close my eyes and imagine it is your hand I am holding. I know this is a sin. I know this makes me a monster, but I cannot stop. She folded the letter carefully. She placed it on the stack. She did not cry. She had trained herself not to cry. But something in her chest, the part she thought had died, cracked. The fourth letter was shorter, almost brutal. I have stopped searching. I have accepted that you are dead to me. But I still write, because writing to you is the only time I am alive. She read it, read it again, and then she laughed, a hollow, broken sound that echoed in the empty study. He had stopped searching. He had accepted that she was dead, while she had been alive, while she had been raising his son, while she had been working in a laundress's shop in a village so far from the estate that no one knew her name, while she had been teaching their child to speak, to read, to dream of a life where he was not the bastard son of a duke who had thrown his mother away. He had stopped. She opened the fifth letter. I saw a woman today. She had your hair. Dark, thick. The kind of hair I used to wrap around my fingers while you slept. I followed her for 3 blocks before I realized she was not you. I stood in the middle of the street like a fool. People stared. I did not care. I never care anymore. She remembered that day. She had been in a different village, a different laundress's shop, a different life. And he had been somewhere else, chasing a ghost. The 6th letter was crumpled, as if he had thrown it away and then fished it out of the fire. My wife is pregnant. I should be happy. I am not. I feel nothing. I have felt nothing since you left. I am a shell, a title, a name. I am the Duke of Ravenscroft, and I am dead inside. She stopped. His wife was pregnant. While she was raising his son alone, while she was working 14-hour days to put food on the table, while she was telling their child that his father was a hero, a good man who had died before he could meet him, because the truth was too cruel, too ugly, too impossible for a child to carry. She wanted to hate him. She had spent years hating him. She had spent years hating him. But these letters, his confessions written in isolation, his grief poured onto paper he never dared to send, made her question if hate was even possible when the truth was this raw. If you want to see whether she finally answers those letters, whether she lets him find out about the son he never knew existed, subscribe to walk through every scandal, every unspoken word, every haunting letter with us. And tell us in the comments, the moment she read about his wife's pregnancy, did that shatter her or harden her? But the letters, these letters, the ones he had never sent, made the hate feel thin, like paper, like something that could burn. The 7th letter was different. The handwriting was steadier, the words were measured, cold. I have heard rumors, whispers, that you are alive, that you have a child, that the child has my eyes. She felt the air leave her lungs. I do not know if the rumors are true. I do not know if I want them to be true, because if they are true, it means you kept my child from me. It means you chose to raise my blood in poverty, in obscurity, in a world where no one knows his name. It means you hate me more than you love our son. She pressed the letter to her chest. The paper was cold, the words were not. But if the rumors are false, if I have spent 6 years mourning a woman who does not exist, a child who does not exist, then I have wasted my life on a ghost, and I do not know which is worse, to have lost you or to have invented you. The 8th letter was undated. The ink was smudged. The handwriting was barely legible. They tell me you have returned. They tell me you have a child with my eyes. I cannot stand. I cannot breathe. I cannot write a single word that would be enough, so I will write nothing. I will come to you, and I will say it with my hands because my mouth has never known how to speak the truth. She finished reading. The letter trembled in her hands. She looked up, and he was standing in the doorway. He had not died. He had never left. He had been watching her read. For how long? Minutes? Hours? She did not know. She did not care. He looked older. The cold, untouchable Duke she remembered had been replaced by a man with silver at his temples and shadows under his eyes. He was thinner. His coat hung loose on his shoulders. His hands, the hands that had once held her face, that had once written her those letters, that had once chosen another woman over her, hung at his sides, trembling. He said nothing. He waited. She looked at him, at the letters scattered across the desk, at the chest that held 7 years of words he had never spoken, at the man who had searched for her and stopped, who had mourned her and forgotten her, who had written her 1,000 confessions and buried them in a locked chest because he was too afraid to say them out loud. She did not speak. She placed the letters back in the chest. She closed the lid. She walked toward him. And the final line, the one she had carried in her chest for 7 years, the one she had never said to anyone, the one that had kept her alive and broken her all at once, rose to her lips. Some truths are not meant to be read. They are meant to be lived in the space between two people who have already broken each other. She stopped in front of him. He reached out. The screen faded before they touched. The silence between them was not empty. It was filled with 7 years of letters he had never sent, 7 years of words she had never heard, 7 years of a child who had grown up believing his father was a ghost. He did not touch her. His hand hovered in the air, inches from her arm, as if he was afraid she would shatter, as if he was afraid he would shatter. She watched his hand. She remembered how it had felt on her skin. Warm, certain. The hand of a man who knew what he wanted. The hand of a man who had let her go. "Say something," he whispered. The words scraped out of his throat like broken glass. She did not. She had spent 7 years imagining this moment. In the dark hours of the night, when the child was asleep and the fire had burned to embers and the silence was too heavy to bear, she had imagined him finding her, imagined him begging, imagined him on his knees. She had imagined herself walking past him. She had imagined herself spitting at his feet. She had imagined herself forgiving him, but none of those imaginings had prepared her for the reality of his face, the way the years had carved themselves into his skin, the way his eyes held a desperation she had never seen, the way his hands trembled like leaves in a storm. "The boy," he said. "Our son. What is his name?" She felt the word rise in her throat. A word she had whispered to herself 1,000 times, a word she had pressed into his skin like a prayer when he was a newborn, when she was alone in a cold room with nothing but a candle and the sound of his breathing. "Sebastian," she said. His breath caught. "Sebastian," he repeated. The name sounded different in his mouth, heavier, like a weight he had been carrying without knowing it. She watched him say it, watched the way his lips formed the syllables, watched the way his eyes changed, from desperation to something else, something softer, something that looked almost like grief. "I have a son," he said. Not a question, a confession. "You have a son," she said, "and he does not know you exist." He flinched. The small, almost invisible movement was more devastating than any words he could have spoken. "You told him I was dead. I told him you were a good man who died before he could meet him." The words hung between them like smoke. "A good man," he repeated. The bitterness in his voice was not directed at her. It was directed at himself. "You should have told him the truth." "What truth?" Her voice was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that came before a storm. That his father chose another woman at the altar, while his mother bled onto the cathedral floor. That his father sent her away with gold and told her to forget. That his father spent 7 years writing letters he never had the courage to send. Each word landed like a blade. He did not look away. Yes, he said. Tell him the truth. Tell him I was a coward. Tell him I am still a coward. Tell him that I have spent every day of the last 7 years wishing I could go back to the moment I let you walk into the fog and stop it. Stop everything. Stop the wedding. Stop the lies. Stop being the man everyone expected me to be. His voice cracked on the last word. She had never heard his voice crack, not once, not when his father had died, not when he had told her they could not be together, not when he had watched her walk down the aisle of the cathedral, her eyes fixed on the woman who was not her, his face stone. He had been stone, and now he was breaking. Tell him the truth, he said again. Tell him that I have loved his mother since I was 19 years old, and I have been too afraid to say it out loud. Tell him that I have written her 1,000 letters and burned them in my mind, because I did not have the courage to send them. Tell him that I am standing here in front of her, and I do not know what to say because every word I've ever spoken has been wrong. She looked at him, really looked, at the silver threading through his dark hair, at the lines around his mouth that had not been there 7 years ago, at the way his hands, those hands, the ones that had once traced her spine in the dark, were clenched at his sides, white-knuckled, as if he was holding himself together by sheer force. "Why now?" she asked. He blinked. "Why now?" she repeated. "Why did you not send the letters? Why did you not come for me? Why did you stop searching?" The question had been buried in her chest for 7 years. She had never expected to ask it. She had never expected to see him again. He looked down at his hands. "Because I was afraid of what I would find." She waited. "If I found you," he said slowly, "and you hated me, truly hated me, I would have no hope left. I would have nothing. As long as I did not know, I could pretend. I could pretend that you were somewhere thinking of me, that you had named our son after me. Sebastian is not your name." "No," he said, "but it was your father's name. You told me once. You said if you ever had a son, you would name him after the only good man you had ever known." She felt the air leave her lungs. He remembered. He remembered everything. "He has your eyes," she said. The words came out before she could stop them. "The exact same shade of grey. When he looks at me, I see you everywhere." His face crumpled. "Do you hate me?" he asked. The question was raw, unpolished, a child's question, asked by a man who had spent his entire life pretending to be invincible. She thought about the letters, about the 7 years of loneliness, about the cold rooms and the hungry nights, and the way she had held her son, and pretended she was not dying inside. "Do you hate me?" he asked again. She looked at him, at the man who had broken her, at the man who had written her 1,000 confessions and never sent them, at the man who was standing in front of her, trembling, waiting for her answer. "No," she said, and the word was heavier than she had expected. Not forgiveness, not absolution, something between. "I do not hate you," she said. "I have tried. I have spent 7 years trying to hate you, but hatred requires energy, and I have used all of my energy to survive." He exhaled, a long, shuddering breath. "Then what do you feel?" She did not answer, because she did not know. She had spent so long suppressing everything, the love, the hurt, the rage, the longing, that she no longer knew what was real and what was scar tissue. "Show me," she said. He blinked. "Show me," she repeated. "Do not tell me. Do not write me letters you will never send. Show me." She turned and walked out of the study. She did not look back. She heard his footsteps behind her. The garden was overgrown. 7 years of neglect had turned the roses into wild, tangled thickets. The bench where he had first kissed her was cracked and covered in moss. The stone wall where he had whispered that she was his was crumbling. She stopped in the middle of the garden. He stopped behind her. "This is where you broke me," she said. "Right here, on this bench, in the rain. I know. This is where you told me you loved me, and then you told me to forget. I know. This is where I became someone else, someone who could survive." He stepped closer. She did not move. "I remember everything," he said. "Every word, every touch, every night we spent together. I remember the way you laughed when I fell into the mud trying to catch a butterfly for you. I remember the way you smelled after the rain. I remember the way you said my name, not your grace, not my lord, but my name, as if I was just a man, as if I was worthy of being loved." She turned. He was close, too close. She could see the pulse beating in his throat. "I am not worthy," he said. "I know that. But I am here. I am here, and I am not leaving. Not again. Sebastian is sleeping, she said. He wakes at dawn. He does not know you exist. If you want to be part of his life, you will have to earn it. You will have to show up, every day, not with letters, not with promises, with presents. I will. You will have to prove that you will not leave again. I will prove it. You will have to prove that you will not choose someone else over him, over us. He did not hesitate. I will spend the rest of my life proving it. She looked at him, at the man who had been a stranger for 7 years, at the man who was standing in the overgrown garden where she had learned to say goodbye. I will spend the rest of my life proving it. Those words hang in the air like a promise he may not deserve to keep. If you want to witness whether the Duke earns that forgiveness, whether he becomes the father and man Sebastian needs, subscribe to stay inside this garden, inside this reckoning. Tell me in the comments, what is the one thing a man must do to prove he will never leave again? I do not forgive you, she said. Not yet. He nodded. I know. But I'm willing to see if you can become someone worth forgiving. The first light of dawn touched the horizon. Somewhere in the house, a child stirred in his sleep, unaware, innocent, ready to meet a father he had never known. And in the overgrown garden, 2 people who had broken each other stood in the silence, learning how to exist in the space between what had been and what could be. He did not move when she walked away. He stood in the overgrown garden, the moss staining his boots, the thorns catching at his coat, and he watched her disappear into the house. The door closed, the lock clicked. He did not follow. He had waited 7 years. He could wait a little longer. The sun rose slowly over the estate that was not his, the estate where she had built a life without him. He saw the garden she had tended, the herbs she had planted by the kitchen door, the swing that hung from the old oak tree, the ropes worn smooth by a child's hands. He touched the swing, gently, as if it might break. A child's laughter echoed from somewhere inside the house, high, bright. The sound of a boy who did not know the weight of his own name. The Duke of Ravenscroft closed his eyes, and for the first time in 7 years, he did not feel dead inside. She watched him from the window. He was still there, an hour later. Standing in the garden like a man who had nowhere else to be. She had expected him to leave. She had expected him to send a carriage. She had expected him to write a letter, a proper letter, one he would actually send, and wait for her to respond like a proper lady. But he did not leave. He sat down on the cracked bench. He did not seem to care that his trousers would be stained. He did not seem to care that the morning fog was soaking through his coat. He sat, and he waited. She turned away from the window. Sebastian was in the kitchen, eating his breakfast with the unself-conscious hunger of a 7-year-old. He had his father's hands, long fingers, strong, the kind of hands that could hold a sword or a woman or a child. "Who is that man?" Sebastian asked, his mouth full of bread. She felt the words stick in her throat. "Someone who wants to meet you." Sebastian looked at her. He had his father's eyes, grey, watching, assessing. "Is he important?" She thought about the letters, about the 7 years of silence, about the man sitting in the garden, waiting for a chance he did not deserve. He might be, she said. He was still there at noon. She sent a servant out with bread and water. He took them without complaint. He ate, sitting on the cracked bench. He did not knock on the door. Sebastian pressed his face against the window. "He is still there, Mother." "I know." He looked sad. She did not answer. At dusk, she walked outside. He rose when he saw her. His coat was wrinkled. His hair was disheveled. He looked nothing like the untouchable Duke she remembered. He looked like a man who had spent the day learning patience. "You can stay in the guest room tonight," she said. He did not smile. He did not thank her. He simply nodded. "Sebastian wants to meet you," she added. "In the morning." His breath caught. "Does he know who I am?" "No," she said. "But he will." She turned and walked inside. She did not look back. But she heard his footsteps behind her, soft, careful, as if he was still learning how to follow. The morning came with rain. She had not slept. She had lain awake in the dark, listening to the rain on the roof, thinking about the man in the guest room. She had heard him pacing, opening drawers, closing them again, sitting down and standing up. He had not slept either. Sebastian woke before dawn, as he always did. He padded into her room, his hair a mess, his eyes still heavy with sleep. "Is he still here?" "Yes." Sebastian looked at the door, then back at her. "Is he my father?" She had not told him. She had planned to tell him over breakfast. She had planned to find the right words, but Sebastian had always been too sharp for her plans. "Yes," she said, "he is your father." Sebastian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Does he know how to fish?" She laughed. The sound surprised her. It had been a long time since she had laughed. "I do not know," she said. He was waiting in the kitchen when they came down. He was standing by the window, his hands clasped behind his back. He had changed into fresh clothes. Someone had brought them from his estate. He looked like a duke again, but his eyes, when they landed on Sebastian, were not the eyes of a duke. They were the eyes of a father seeing his son for the first time. Sebastian stopped at the doorway. The two of them looked at each other, grey eyes meeting grey eyes. And in the silence, something shifted. "Hello?" Sebastian said. The Duke of Ravenscroft, the coldest man in the aristocracy, the one who had stood at the altar with a stone face and a broken heart, cleared his throat. "Hello," he said. His voice cracked. Sebastian looked at him, studied him. Then he walked forward and sat down at the table. "Do you know how to fish?" he asked. The Duke stared at him. Then slowly a smile broke across his face. The first genuine smile she had seen from him in years. "I do." "Good," Sebastian said. "Mother says we can go to the river after breakfast." She had not said that, but she did not correct him. The Duke looked at her. She did not look away. And in the space between them, something fragile and new began to grow. She watched them walk to the river, father and son, side by side, the morning light filtering through the trees. Sebastian was talking, he never stopped talking, and the Duke was listening, really listening, not the polite, distant listening of a nobleman indulging a child, the kind of listening that leaned in, that nodded, that asked questions. She had never seen him like this. She had seen him commanding his estate. She had seen him dancing at balls, his face a mask of cold perfection. She had seen him in the dark, in the hours when he forgot to be a duke and became just a man, but she had never seen him soft. He knelt by the riverbank, showing Sebastian how to bait the hook. His hands were gentle, patient. He did not rush. He did not take over. He let Sebastian try, fail, try again. "That is good," he said. "Now cast it, gently. Let the line do the work." Sebastian cast. The line landed in the water with a soft splash. "I did it." "You did it," the Duke said. And the smile on his face, so unguarded, so raw, made her chest ache with something she refused to name. 3 days passed. He did not leave. He slept in the guest room. He ate at their table. He walked with Sebastian to the river every morning, and he sat with him in the garden every evening, answering questions about the stars and the horses and the faraway city where the king lived. Sebastian asked about everything. The Duke answered everything. He did not push, he did not demand. He did not try to take her son away from her. He simply stayed. On the 4th day, she found him in the garden at dawn. He was sitting on the cracked bench, a letter in his hands. Not one of the unsent letters from the chest, a new one, blank paper, unsealed. He looked up when she approached. "I was going to write to you," he said. "I thought maybe it would be easier, putting the words on paper instead of saying them out loud." She sat down beside him. "But I realized," he continued, "that I have spent too long hiding behind paper. I need to say it." She waited. He folded the blank letter and put it in his pocket. "I love you," he said. 3 words. Simple. Direct. No poetry, no ornament. "I have always loved you. I loved you when I was too afraid to choose you. I loved you when I chose someone else. I loved you when I searched for you, and I loved you when I stopped. I have loved you every single day of the last 7 years, and I will love you every single day for the rest of my life." She heard the words. She felt them. "I am not asking you to love me back," he said. "I am not asking you to forgive me. I am not asking you to pretend the last 7 years did not happen. I am only asking you to let me stay. Let me be part of Sebastian's life. Let me prove that I can be the man you deserved 7 years ago." The river was singing in the distance. The wind was moving through the trees. She looked at him, at the man who had broken her, at the man who had written her 1,000 confessions, at the man who had sat in her garden for 3 days, waiting for a chance he did not deserve. And she made a choice. "You can stay," she said. He exhaled, a long, trembling breath. But I need time. He nodded. I can give you time. I do not know if I can love you again, she said. I do not know if that part of me survived. He took her hand, gently, carefully, as if she was something precious. Then let me help you find out. He did not let go of her hand. They sat on the cracked bench as the sun rose higher, the garden slowly warming around them. The roses she had planted were beginning to bloom, small, hesitant buds, as if they too were learning to trust the light again. Tell me about Sebastian, he said. Tell me everything I missed. She looked at him. The question was not idle. His eyes were earnest, hungry, the eyes of a man who knew he had lost something irreplaceable and was desperate to reclaim even a fragment of it. He was born in a room above a tavern, she said. The innkeeper's wife was kind. She held my hand through the pain. She was the first person to hold him besides me. He flinched. She saw it, the quick, involuntary tightening of his jaw. I named him at dawn, she continued. The sun was rising and he was so small, and I wanted him to have a name that meant something. My father's name, the only man who ever taught me I was worthy of love. His grip on her hand tightened, just slightly. His first word was Mama. His first steps were toward a fireplace. He burned his hand on the grate and cried for hours. I sat up with him all night, singing the lullabies my mother used to sing to me. I should have been there, he said. The words were hoarse. I should have been holding your hand. I should have been singing to him. You were not. The silence that followed was not cruel. It was honest. The first time he fell off a horse, he was 4, she said. A farmer's pony, too big for him. He insisted. He had your stubbornness. He climbed back on, bleeding from his knee, and rode the pony around the field until he fell again, and then he got back on again. That sounds like me. It sounds like you. But he is better than you. He is kinder. He does not have the coldness you learned to wear like armor. He looked down at their joined hands. I am trying to take the armor off, he said. It is harder than I expected. You have worn it your whole life. It will not come off in a day. Will you help me? She did not answer immediately. I will not carry it for you, she said finally. I carried enough for both of us for 7 years, but I will stand beside you while you take it off yourself. The days turned into weeks. He did not leave. He sent word to his estate that he would be away indefinitely. He wrote letters, proper letters, ones he actually sent, to his stewards, his tenants, his mother, who had not spoken to him since the wedding. He did not tell them where he was. He did not owe them that. He learned the rhythm of her household. Breakfast at dawn, Sebastian's lessons in the morning, the river in the afternoon, dinner at dusk, stories before bed. He learned that Sebastian was afraid of thunderstorms, that he loved honey cakes, that he wanted a dog more than anything in the world. He learned that she still had the habit of touching her neck when she was thinking, that she hummed when she was cooking, that she laughed more easily than she had 7 years ago, but that the laughter did not reach her eyes as often. He learned the shape of her absence, and he learned to wait. On the 8th night, a storm rolled in. The wind howled. The rain lashed against the windows. Thunder cracked so close that the house trembled. She found him in the hallway outside Sebastian's room. He was standing with his hand on the door, not opening it, just standing. He is afraid of storms, she said. I know. He did not move. He asked me to stay with him, he said. But I do not know if I should. I do not know if I have the right. She looked at him, at the Duke of Ravenscroft, the most powerful man in the northern counties, standing in a hallway, his hand on his son's door, afraid to open it. He is your son, she said. You have every right. But what if I fail him? What if he looks at me and sees a stranger? What if I say the wrong thing and he never trusts me again? She stepped closer. You will fail him, she said. You will say the wrong thing. You will disappoint him. That is what parents do. But you will also be there. That is what matters. He looked at her. Did I disappoint you? The question was soft, vulnerable. You destroyed me, she said. But you are here now. That is what matters. He opened the door. Sebastian was sitting up in bed, his knees drawn to his chest, his eyes wide. When he saw his father, his face softened. Papa, he said. The word hit the Duke like a physical blow. Papa, Sebastian said again. The thunder is loud. The Duke crossed the room in 3 steps. He sat on the edge of the bed. He did not hesitate. He pulled his son into his arms. I am here, he said. I will always be here. She watched from the doorway. The rain continued to fall, and something in her chest, the part she thought had died, the part that had been buried under 7 years of survival, stirred. On the 12th day, she walked into the garden and found him digging. He was on his knees, his sleeves rolled up, his hands covered in dirt. He had pulled out the dead roses and was replacing them with new ones. "What are you doing?" she asked. He looked up. His face was streaked with mud. "I ruined this garden," he said. "I broke the bench. I let the roses die. I want to fix it. I want to plant new ones. For you. For Sebastian. For the life we could have." She watched him. "You cannot fix everything by planting roses," she said. "I know, but I can start here." She knelt beside him. "I will help you." They planted together through the afternoon, her hands in the dirt, his hands in the dirt, their shoulders brushing. Sebastian joined them after his lessons. He dug holes with his bare hands and filled them with mud and laughed when the dirt splashed onto his shirt. By sunset, the garden looked different, not restored, not healed, but beginning. She found the 9th letter on her pillow, not from the chest, a new one. Fresh paper, his handwriting, still jagged, still desperate, but steadier. She opened it. "I told you I would stop hiding behind paper, but I need you to know what I am too afraid to say out loud. I love you. I love the life you built without me. I love the son we made together. I love the way you look at me when you think I am not watching, as if you are trying to decide if I am real. I am real. I am here. I am not leaving. I know I do not deserve you. I know I do not deserve him. But I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to earn the privilege of standing beside you. Yours, always, even when I do not deserve to be." She read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and placed it in the chest. Not with the unsent letters. Beside them, where it belonged. She did not tell him she had found it. The next morning, he was already in the garden when she woke. His sleeves were rolled up, his hands were in the dirt. He was transplanting lavender along the stone wall, where she had once told him she loved the scent. She stood at the window, the folded letter burning in her memory, a confession he could not yet speak aloud, a love he was planting in soil because he had no words left. This is the moment where everything could have broken. Subscribe to see if he finally earns the privilege of her forgiveness, if a duchess dares to trust the man who broke her heart. Tell me in the comments which letter broke you, the ones he never sent or the one she kept. She watched him from the window. He did not know she was watching. He worked slowly, carefully, as if each plant mattered, as if he was not just fixing the garden but building something, a foundation, a future, a proof written in soil and roots. Sebastian ran out to join him, still in his nightclothes. "Can I help?" "Come here," the Duke said. "I will show you how to dig a hole deep enough for the roots to breathe." Sebastian knelt beside him. Dirt flew. Laughter followed. She pressed her palm against the cold glass, and she let herself feel it. Not hope, not yet, but the possibility of it. A seed, as fragile as the lavender taking root in the earth. He stayed through the summer. He learned Sebastian's favorite foods, his fears, his dreams. He learned that the boy wanted to be a knight, a sailor, and a baker, all 3 in that order. He learned that Sebastian had never had a birthday party with other children. He learned that his son had a scar on his knee from the horse he had fallen off, and that he still had the first coin his mother had ever given him, worn smooth from holding. He learned the shape of her silence too, the way she pulled away when he stood too close, the way her eyes shuttered when he mentioned the past, the way she smiled at Sebastian with an ease that vanished the moment she looked at him. He did not push. He waited. On the first day of autumn, she found him in the garden at night. The moon was full. The air was cold. He was sitting on the repaired bench, a single candle flickering beside him, a piece of paper in his hands. "You are still writing letters," she said. He looked up. "I am still writing letters," he admitted, "but I am not putting them in a chest anymore. I am sending them." "To whom?" "To you." She sat beside him. "Every night," he said, "I write you a letter. I tell you what I learned that day. I tell you what I remember. I tell you what I hope for. I do not send them all. Some of them are too raw. Some of them are too foolish, but I write them." "Show me one." He hesitated. Then he handed her the paper. She read it by candlelight. "Today, Sebastian told me he loves me." He said it like it was nothing, like it was as natural as breathing. And I realized I have never heard those words from a child. I have never been loved by someone who does not want something from me. It terrifies me. Because if I lose this, if I lose him, if I lose you, I will not survive it. I think that is why I never sent the letters. I was afraid that if I admitted how much I needed you, the world would take you away. I am still afraid, but I am writing this anyway, because you deserve to know that I am terrified, and I am staying anyway. She folded the letter. Keep writing them, she said. I will. Do not stop, even when it is hard, even when I am cold, even when I cannot say it back. He looked at her. The candlelight flickered between them. I will never stop, he said. Winter came. The garden froze. The river iced over. Sebastian grew taller, stronger, more certain of his place in the world, and the Duke of Ravenscroft grew softer. He learned to cook. He burned 3 meals before he made one that was edible. He learned to chop wood. He split his palm open on the first log and bandaged it himself, refusing to let her see the blood. He learned to read Sebastian bedtime stories without stumbling over the words, without pretending to be too dignified for dragons and princesses. He learned to be a father, and she learned to watch him without guarding her heart. On Christmas Eve, the snow fell thick and silent. Sebastian was asleep, his face pressed into his pillow, a half-eaten honey cake still clutched in his hand. She found the Duke standing by the window in the parlour, watching the snow. "Merry Christmas," she said. He turned. His face was soft in the candlelight. "Merry Christmas?" She walked to stand beside him. "Sebastian wanted to give you something," she said. "But he fell asleep before he could." "He can give it to me in the morning." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small box. "This is from me." He stared at it. "Open it." He did. Inside was a key. "To the front door," she said. "So you do not have to knock anymore." He looked at her. His eyes were bright. "Are you sure?" "I am sure that I want you to stay," she said. "I am sure that I do not know what will happen next, but I am sure that I want you here." He closed the box. He placed it carefully on the windowsill, and then he reached for her. Not with force, not with demand, with the same patience he had learned in the garden, in the kitchen, in the long days of showing up without expecting anything in return. He took her face in his hands, slowly, gently, and he kissed her. Not the kiss of a duke claiming what was his. The kiss of a man who had spent 7 years learning what it meant to lose everything, and who had spent the last 6 months learning how to hold something precious without crushing it. She kissed him back, and in the snow, in the candlelight, in the house that had become a home, the silence between them was no longer empty. It was full. Spring returned. The garden bloomed. The river thawed. The roses she had planted with him climbed the stone wall in wild, unruly tangles, and the letters kept coming, not the unsent letters. Those stayed in the chest, a monument to what had been lost. The new letters filled a drawer in her desk. Some of them were short. "I saw a butterfly today. It made me think of you." Some of them were long, pages and pages of everything he had never said, everything he was learning to say. She did not answer them all, but she kept every single one. Sebastian learned to ride properly that spring, not on a farmer's pony, but on a small grey mare the Duke had brought from his estate. "She was mine when I was a boy," he told Sebastian. "She is old now, gentle. She will take care of you." Sebastian named her Star. The Duke taught him to groom her, to saddle her, to whisper to her so she would know his voice. "He is good at this," she said one afternoon, watching them from the fence. The Duke looked up. "I had a good teacher." She tilted her head. "My father," he said. "He was cold, distant. He never told me he loved me, but he taught me how to ride. He taught me that a horse will only trust you if you are honest." "And are you honest?" He looked at Sebastian, who was laughing as Star nuzzled his hair. "I am learning to be. I am learning to be." She watched him for a long moment, the way his hand rested on Sebastian's shoulder, the way his eyes followed the boy's every movement, as if he was memorizing each second. The way he had become someone she almost recognized, not the Duke who had broken her, someone new, someone who had earned the right to stand in her garden. The chest of unsent letters remained in the study. She did not open it again. She did not need to. She had read enough. She had learned that his silence had not been cruelty, it had been fear. She had learned that his abandonment had not been choice, it had been cowardice. She had learned that the man who had destroyed her had spent 7 years destroying himself in return, and she had learned that forgiveness was not a single moment. It was a practice, a choice she made every morning when she saw him at the breakfast table, every evening when she heard him reading to Sebastian, every night when she found a new letter on her pillow. On the last day of spring, she walked into the garden and found him standing alone. The roses were in full bloom. The bench had been rebuilt. The stone wall had been mended. He turned when he heard her footsteps. "I wrote you one more letter," he said. He held it out. She took it, but she did not open it. "I do not need to read it," she said. He blinked. "I already know what it says." She stepped closer, close enough to see the grey in his eyes, the lines around his mouth, the vulnerability he no longer tried to hide. "It says that you love me. It says that you are sorry. It says that you will spend the rest of your life proving that you deserve to be here." He swallowed. "It does." She reached out. She took his hand. She wove her fingers through his. "Then stop writing it," she said, "and start living it." He looked down at their joined hands, then up at her face. "Is that what you want? I want you to stop proving and start being. I want you to stop apologizing and start present. I want you to stop writing letters I already know the ending of." She squeezed his hand. "I want you to stay. Not because you are earning something, because you are home." He did not speak. He did not need to. He pulled her into his arms, and she let him. She let herself be held. She let herself feel the warmth of his chest, the beat of his heart, the weight of 7 years finally beginning to lift. The garden was quiet. The roses were blooming, and for the first time in her life, she did not feel like a woman who had been abandoned. She felt like a woman who had been found.